Hi everyone, it's Sam and I'm back with another video for Lawn Fawn. Today I'm sharing a card made with You're the Zest, Make Lemonade, All the Clouds, Grassy Border, Stitched Hillside Borders, and the Knock Knock Who's There die set. I'm starting today by coloring all my images the same way I always do with Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. I'm spritzing some water off to the side to dampen my water brush that does not have any water in it. It could just as well be a regular paintbrush for how I use it. I'm using mustard yellow and lemon yellow for all of the lemons, as well as light carmine and pale orange for the cheeks of everything. I am starting, well, the bigger images, I use the darker color, then the middle color, and then the lighter color, and then I pull it all together with my slightly damp water brush. If the water brush is heavily saturated with water, it will bloom, spread the color past the stamped part, dilute the color and the vibrancy. So that's why I like to control the amount of water I put on my water brush by dipping it in the water that I have sprayed on my craft mat. And then I usually either wipe it off on a piece of paper towel or on my hand, just to make sure it's the right level of wet without being dripping wet. All of the lemons are, as I mentioned, the same yellow. I wasn't sure when I had stamped these images and when I was picturing the card in my head, I wasn't sure what color I wanted to color the hats of the mice. I had originally thought, oh, I'll just do brown. And then I thought, oh no, maybe I'll do green or blue. Blue is a good contrast to yellow. But then I decided to go with rainbow because I found some extra colored and die cut images that I had used, thought I was going to use for a previous card that I had made a while ago. And I thought, oh, let me just use those extra pieces, the rainbow and the clouds on this card, which is why you don't see them stamped here because I had already colored them previously. Here I'm using brick beige, vanilla, and platinum brown to color the wood pieces. I thought I was going to color the mice this color, which that was the plan the whole time. But then I thought, oh, you know what? Instead of making these wood, it'd be nice to make these like a grayish, warmish wood. So that's where I went. I used turquoise green, pale green, and pale blue. Light blue. It's the same color I use whenever I want to do a mint color. Okay, yes, turquoise green, pale green, and light blue was used for the mint leaves on all of the lemons, as well as light blue, that same light blue, and haze blue for the tiny little pitcher and glass areas. And now I'm going to be using mustard, light beige, and mocha brown for the mice, which the mice are they're the cutest. I love how there are so many different mice sets and they can all be interchanged. I usually use at least one or two mice sets together when I'm making a scene just because they work so well. They're so funny. They're whimsical. But I did just keep it to this one mice set, the new Make Lemonade set, which I was pretty proud of myself. I'm not going to lie. That was some restraint. And as you can see, I'm just coloring these like I did all the other images, starting with the darker shade, pulling it out with the medium shade, and then finally with the light shade. I do go over it a few times, like a couple times. I do it just because originally the first layer to me sets the scene. The second, then when you add the dark and medium again, it kind of really reinforces the contrast and shadowing. In my very amateur brain, that's what it does. And then of course the same pink cheeks with the light carmine and the pale orange. Then the light blue for the straw as well, which we've already used for the other images. And again, as I point out, I'm just using the same yellows I used for the lemons for the signs, the fresh squeezed, the sugar, and the lemonade. And that's the image. Those are the images. They're ready to be cut. Next, I'm going to do a lot of ink blending. I die cut a stitched hillside border for the front of the card, as well as a border of grass, which I'm using Distress Oxide inks in Pine Needles, Mowed Lawn, and Twisted Citron. I also off camera later end up die cutting these same borders again and ink blending them the same way to include behind the knock knock who's there door when you open it. I didn't think about it at this point in my process, but I did do it. And then when I did it, I realized I wasn't recording. So I am very sorry, but it's literally the exact same process for those two extra borders, which you'll see soon. Next, I'm using a piece of white cardstock that is basically, it could be a card base. I folded it so I know where the scene is going to be, and I'm just ink blending the background in Distress Oxide Inks, Blueprint Sketch, Mermaid, Lagoon, Peacock Feathers, and Salvage Patina. And I'm just going darkest to lightest from the top to the bottom. It doesn't have to be perfect because a lot of this is going to be covered up with my scene. And honestly, the interactive element is like the star of the show. So that's where I was concentrating most of the effort. But it looks worse here than it will in the final card. And then I'm just kind of guessing where I want my door to be, because I also want to ink blend behind it so that when the door opens, it's not just a plain white card, which also would be totally fine and adorable. And if anybody said anything about why is inside plain white, then don't give them another card, right? But I'm just coloring it with the same Peacock Feathers and Salvage Patina that I used on the outside at that level of the scene. I die cut, as I showed you, 2 pull tabs from the Knock Knock Who's There die set. One, I cut off the T shape and just used Peacock Feathers and Salvage Patina, which I'm just going to attach to the top of this pull tab so that it keeps the same color, right? There's no continuity issues. And it also gives it a little bit of extra stability. So I'm just going to attach it right to the front so that when you pull out the tab and you open the door, it's just the same color. You'll see in a minute when I get there. I'm attaching my door from Knock Knock Who's There to the card base. I'm just lining up that arrow right along my seam of the folded card. And then this little interactive die piece, you line up the bottom, that little bottom part and the arrow facing the door. And that cuts the 2 track lines. And then I'm just inserting this T shape, which we already cut and decorated. You put the T through the 2 track lines, add some adhesive to the the folded over tab, which then connects to the door. I'm using I'm using strong adhesive, but also a little tiny bit of glue, just a tiny, tiny bit of glue. Because Distress Oxide inks in particular are a little bit wetter. They sit at the surface of the paper. And so I didn't know if just a straight tape adhesive would keep it together, if that makes sense. And finally, I'm just going to add some foam tape inside where the track line is. You want to make sure to give lots of room and space for the actual pull tab and track, and then remove the release paper and fold over your card front just like a book. And there you go. Next, we're going to start creating the background. I'm adding my ink blended grass and hills, and then I'm using my super fancy, don't be jealous, kids meal ruler from the movie Planes that my kids had when they were babies to line up where the door meets the bottom so that it can open. And this is basically, and I'm cutting it so you can open it. And this is basically what the card's going to look like. As usual, I had to preset it up and see what it looked like before I started gluing things down, because the most fun part to me is moving the pieces around and creating the scene. So this is what it's going to look like. And I'm just gluing everything straight to the background. Nothing is popped up because the card itself is already popped up. And as you can see, this little lemon, he's in charge of the lemonade stand. And the mice are kind of helping, kind of also, enjoying the beverage. And I just love creating this scene. Lots of little details with the pitcher, the glass of lemonade, that he's selling. Also, I'm going to have a little bit of action inside the door. This is where I realized, I need some grass inside 100%. So I am using the ink blended grass that I had done off camera. Again, I'm so sorry. And attaching it inside, easy peasy. And I'm just trimming off the extra just so that it continues the scene. It's a little bit choppy. It's not perfect. You can, I had to cut in between the door because folding it over, it was too thick. So I just cut it so it can easily fold and close, and it's great. It's perfect. There's our little lemon peeking out from behind with a little sip of refreshing lemonade for himself. Don't think too much about it. And then I'm putting on the mice on the front of the card who are also enjoying the hot day and the cool beverage. I love the rainbow that coordinates with the mice's hats, mice's hats. I don't know. And it just adds a pop of color that I think this card kind of needed. At this point, I'm just adding the little bit of lemons everywhere. And honestly, I thought I was done. I like literally showed the card to the camera and was like, all done. There's no sentiment. My bad. It's my bad. So I did finally see, I'm like making the card base. I'm going to attach it to the card base because I'm like, oh, I'm done. That's great. And I think, yep, I can't wait to show this card off. All set. And then I remembered, sentiment. Of course, silly goose. So I'm just heat embossing the sentiment from Make Lemonade in white onto some black licorice paper and then trimming it down to like a border. I am going to pop this up with foam tape just because I wanted it to stand out a little bit more. And that's it. That actually finishes the card this time. No false alarm. And I love how it came out. I know it's a little silly and a little whimsical, but that's me. I love this little guy peeking through. The little mouse friend inside can see him. And I just think it's so fun. Thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to check this card out up on the Lawnfawn blog and have a great day. Bye.